Welcome, Ram Ram. Welcome to the 8th session of the personalized meditation training about meditating on the self and with the self. And thanks for being here. Thanks also for your donation, which really keeps this going. And this week we have a big change in the Q&A part of this class, which will happen tomorrow, Saturday, not on YouTube Live, but in a Facebook Messenger room, which I think will make for a very nice togetherness, a very good satsang, where we can all see each other and talk to each other and meet each other. And so all you need for that is some kind of mobile or computer with a camera in the mic. And these sessions are not recorded at all, so don't be shy. Just come and let's be together and talk some more about this and any other subject which comes to your mind. So we have already gone through quite many subjects. We've looked at our intention. We've looked at various methods of relaxation prior to meditation. We have looked at the aspect of concentration. And now we are coming slowly to the more essential part of meditation. Having also looked into life, how to organize life so that it best suits our meditation, and what to do in life and what to stop doing in life also to support our meditation. So today we come to the self as a very essential aspect, of course, of any meditation, whether it is more devotional, whether it is more technical, more practical, or whether it is more from the point of view of jhana, directly focused on the self. Always the self plays a major role in meditation, as it is the observer of everything which happens, so also of course of our meditation. The self can be used more in a contemplative way. It can be used prior to any concentration exercise as a means to become silent inside and be able to effectively concentrate without too much thinking going on. And then it can itself also be the object of the meditation. We will talk about that. And it is always important also at the end of any meditation to focus on pure beingness and stay there for a while before then again you step into life. So then, of course, the first question is, what is this self that we are talking about? And for some people, this is already a very well-known and thoroughly studied subject. And for other people, this is still pretty new. So I do have to explain. But I will try to explain it in a condensed way, not really trying to make everybody understand, because that would take too long, not trying to answer any question that I can imagine coming inside of your mind when you are hearing this. I think that would really take us too long. And so, if this is rather new for you, you have many other ways to study it deeper, to understand it better, among which are many of my videos on YouTube, especially the ones on jhana, and especially the one called Jhana the Truth, where I talk about 2 hours at length on the subject of the self only. So you also have my book, The Yoga of Truth, And also my latest book, Love Your Ego, actually gives you a lot of information there. So it is a subject of study, but the self truly is beyond words, is beyond understanding. So whatever I'm going to say now about the self should be listened to without too much thinking, without too much inner dialogue about it. Just try to feel what I'm saying, try to see what I'm saying, and wait with all the questions until later. You know. So the self is a truth which is discovered through a particular question, a very essential question. The question is, who am I? It is a very essential question because actually whatever other question can you answer if you don't know who you are, if you don't know who is asking. So this is always actually the first question. So when we want to find out the truth of something, we always have to be aware, as people generally are, that truth is very relative, that it depends on who is looking, from what direction are you looking, from what angle, what are you seeking. So truth is always very relative. If I say the weather is good today, then some people will agree and some people will disagree because they have a different viewpoint, because they're used to a different kind of weather than me. So that makes it a little hard to find the truth. But still, in the Vedic scriptures, they have described one very clear way to find out something which could be called absolute truth, by looking at whether this truth is unchanging or not. No, something which just comes to again go, or something which appears like this and then changes into that. That is like a fata morgana in the desert. That is an illusion. That is untrue. Only that which is there, can be perceived, and never changes, can be seen as something which is absolutely true. So that is what we are going to use as a way to measure if what we find is absolute truth. And so then, once we start looking around in this universe, in our experience, then soon we find out everything is changing. Even things that are relatively stable, let's say a mountain, 1,000 years later, it will be a different mountain. No? It will have changed. So everything changes, and there is actually only one thing which meets this requirement of never changing, and that is me as the one who is having this experience of the universe. That never changes. Whatever experience there is always somebody experiencing it. And if there is no experience at all, then nothing is there. So also no truth can be there. So in our experience always there is this I am, this I, this me, who is never changing. So that is the one that we are going to look into to find out what this I really is, so that we can know a little bit the truth of ourselves. Anyhow, when we look at the experience, we rapidly realize that our experience of the universe only happens through the five senses, through hearing, touch, etc. And that these senses are just actually making some kind of image, some kind of picture of what we are perceiving. But this picture can be very different, let's say, for example, from one species of animal to another. They will have a different picture. So what we perceive as so-called reality around us is actually just a picture of something, yes, okay, which might be there, but it's just a picture. And so this is very clear about our experiences, that not only are they ever changing, but also we are actually, well, not blind, but not seeing very clearly, no? not being able actually to say much about it. So This I, when we start thinking, who am I, then the first one that we point towards is this I, this body. So, but the body also, we perceive it through the senses. The body, we can see it, we can smell it, we can touch it, we can hear it if we clap on it. So that also means that this body is something which is in our observation. It is not the observer of whatever is perceived, it is part of the perception. It is an object of our observation, and clearly also the body is always changing, aging, but also replacing cells all the time, sometimes feeling good, sometimes not feeling good, and whatever we want to say about it also feels like it's hard to identify with, like, for example, age. Like, yes, I can say my body is getting older, but does that mean that I'm getting older? Doesn't feel like that. It's maybe more in the mind how old you feel or how young you feel. So this I, okay, is related to the body, but we definitely cannot limit this I to the body. And another way to see that is quite simply by looking at this hand, which is part of this body. So I can say this hand is also me, but if this hand is cut off, then it is just some bones and flesh. It's nothing to do with me anymore. I'm not gonna, keep it with me. It's not me. No? So if this hand is not me, then the leg is not me, then what part is me? No, nothing much there which I can say is me. So then looking further to find this I, we can look at our own feelings. But then these feelings also, they come and go. They change all the time. And it's very hard to find the I in those feelings. Like, I can sometimes be angry, but that does not make me an angry person, because sometimes I am not angry. Sometimes I am loving, but does that mean that I am a loving person always? No. So these feelings, there's definitely also, we cannot really identify with it. And the same goes for our thoughts. We are able to witness our thoughts, so that already makes them objects of our observation. They comment on our observation, that's for sure, but at the same time we can also observe them. And we also, have a very hard time to stop them in meditation. So then we have to think, okay, if I can't even stop my thoughts, how can they be me? If that would be me and I'd want to hold still, I'd be able to. But still these thoughts keep coming. It's like here I have a computer and I can't turn it off. So this computer is not me, and the thoughts that are coming is not me. They may be saying something about me, but they are not me. And anyhow, the thoughts themselves, when we analyze those, they are concepts which have a certain definition. But every definition, every concept relates to other concepts. Like a paper is something made of wood usually, and we can write or draw upon it. That's more or less like a definition of paper you could give. But it has all these other words. And each of these words also have their own definitions. So our whole thinking is like just words based on words, based on words, based on words. It's a lot of blah, blah, blah. But it's nothing real. It's only relatively real, yes, for sure. They have some reality, but nothing absolute there, always changing. And again, as I say, objects of our observation also. So then, who am I? I'm called Peter, but that's just a name given to me. It doesn't have anything to do with me. But so, okay, maybe I'm this personality called Peter, But then I would say there are many Peters. There is Peter the teacher, and there is Peter the father, and there is Peter the son, and there is Peter who may be playing soccer and eating some really nice raita masala. So many different Peters are there, and at every point, at every moment, in every role that I'm playing, I am different. I am changing. It's very hard to say I am like this or I'm like that. No, so this Peter is a very strange concept again and again. I can also observe this Peter. No? This personality, I can observe it. No? I can see it happening. But it's not me. I'm the one observing it. So I cannot say that I'm smart or stupid. Sometimes I may be smart, sometimes I may be stupid. That's very clear. So all these objects we cannot really see as the absolute reality, as the absolute truth. The only thing which never changes, as I said, is the I, which is observing. No? But this I which is observing may be using these eyes to observe, but the eyes are not the I. It may be using this body to do a lot of things, but it is not this body. It may be having these feelings, it may be having these thoughts, but it is not these feelings and these thoughts. And it may have a certain personality, but it is not this personality. It is the pure observer. So that we then call the self, the pure consciousness, whichever way you want to call it, it does not matter. That is what we are actually looking for. This self, this observer, is very special in the way that we can't really say anything clear about it, except that it clearly exists, but it has no form. We cannot say that the self, my observer, is big or small, old or young, wise or stupid. Any of these dualities do not seem to apply to this observer, which essentially has no particular quality, has no particular form, no particular shape, no particular size, no particular temperature. Nothing is there, and still it is there. It is the emptiness which is full. So then we easily come into this kind of strange ways of saying things where we seem to combine two complementarities into one, but cannot really name the one except just to then give it a name like the self. So it is empty and yet it is full of being. There is another way of saying it. But it is essentially without form. And because it is without form, it also cannot change. So the fact that it is without form means that it cannot change. If you have a form, then the form can become bigger or more dark or cold or whichever. But if you have something, you have to imagine here, something with no form. You can't see it, you can't smell it. So it can't change. Because if it would change, into what would it change? It can only be what it is, a pure being without form. So the fact that it is unchanging also means that it is unaffected by whatever happens, by whatever it observes. It is often then compared to the screen of a movie theater. All kinds of things happen on the screen, love and hate and war and whatever. But after the movie is finished, the screen is white as ever. So the self is like that. Whatever we go through as personalities, for our innermost self actually is nothing. It doesn't make any difference. It does not have any effect because anyhow we cannot change. So it is unaffected, and that also means it is beyond happy and unhappy. Definitely we can say when we are meditating and are able to let this being just be without any thoughts, then we can feel this is a good feeling, this is a happy feeling. But it is actually beyond this duality of happy and unhappy. It is eternally in bliss, but beyond happy, unhappy. It's a little complicated maybe. But since it is always in bliss, it is without desire. Because desire always originates in some kind of feeling of needing something because something is lacking. When we need something, it means something is lacking. So then we get a desire. But since in the self, nothing ever is needed, nothing ever can make a difference, nothing ever can change, there is no desire. And since there is no desire, there's also never any problem of not being able to fulfill a desire. So the self is totally beyond all problems, which makes it quite interesting to identify with. It is often named, if you really do want to describe it somehow, as Sat Chit Ananda, truth, being and bliss. It is the absolute truth, and it is at the same time also the absolute knowing of the truth. It is Chit, which means it is being, it just exists. And it is Ananda, which is bliss. It is always in bliss. So the self is Sat Chit Ananda. It was never born, it will never die, it is totally endless. And what is also very important is that the self is essential to whatever is happening. As I said, whatever is happening is I having some kind of experience. So this I, which we now defined as the self, is always essential to everything. And I cannot do anything, I cannot think anything without this I being here. If you analyze your thoughts, always somehow this I is there. Because thoughts are always about some kind of experience and wanting to change the experience. And so there's always an I who is involved there. So the I is essential to everything. And that also means it is included in everything in the universe around us. So now we come from the discovery of the self inside of us as the observer of everything else, and then we start looking around in the environment, and then we see some other people, and we see what they are doing, and though they still might be an illusion, if they are not, then they can only be what they are if they have this I also inside them. If this formless self is there also inside them, and then if we look in the eyes of a horse, or we look in the eyes of a fish, then we also have to see, okay, behind the eye of the fish, there must be some pure consciousness, some pure being, some self, which is there, and which is not different from this self. And that is an important realization, a very beautiful realization, to understand that my formless self, my formless pure being, cannot be any different than the formless self of a horse, a pig, a fish, or anything else. Because how can two formless things be in any way different? We cannot say that my self is more wise than that of a pig or more big than that of a horse. It's totally crazy. No, the self is always formless. So when we have two of them, let's say, then they are one. Then they are the same. Then we can find no difference between them. So we can then look further, and we look at the sunflower, how it follows the sun every day from morning till evening. So also there some observer is there. How else could the sunflower do that? And also other plants, they reach out to the light and do all sorts of things which are impossible to do without some kind of observer, some kind of self there, which again is not different from ourself. And then we can look even into much smaller organisms like microorganisms like the coronavirus cannot do what it is doing without some kind of observer, some kind of witness of what is happening inside. So then we understand that everything around us is having at its center this same pure consciousness, this same pure being, and that in this way we are in a cosmic ocean of consciousness. And then this cosmic consciousness, we can call it God or whatever, we want to call it. And I would like to take it a little bit further also beyond consciousness, because it is also very clear in the experience that this consciousness, it also has a certain energy. Otherwise, how could it feel blissful? No? Otherwise, how could it have ananda? It's not possible. No? So the pure consciousness also is a pure energy, an essential pure energy, which is, the other side of consciousness. We can say that we are pure consciousness, but at the same time we can also say we are pure energy, we are energized consciousness or conscious energy, whichever you want to name it. But so then God is not only cosmic consciousness, it is also cosmic energy. Cosmic energy from which everything is made and which we also can relate, for example, to the life force, to the prana which we breathe in with every breath. And with this prana comes energy, but at the same time also comes consciousness. So in that way we are also so very much linked together as truly one cosmic ocean of pure being, manifesting in all these billions, zillions of different forms. So that last part is a little bit more the tantric jhana. You get this kind of discussions in yoga philosophy about whether the absolute truth is consciousness or energy. But truly they are one and the same. They are just two ways in which this pure being appears. But so still then, those who believe more in consciousness, they like to call it Shiva, and so they more like see it as male. And those who more believe in the energy, the mother from which we are all born, they will see it more as female, as Shakti. But the truth is beyond Shiva and Shakti. The truth is also known in India then as Ardhanarishwara. Ardhanarishwara, a figure which is half male, half female, half Shiva, half Shakti. And so that is actually the real cosmic being that is behind everything and inside everything, and that truly is everything, or at least from which everything comes forth. So, if we want to be happy whatever happens, which is the essential question of yoga, then here we have found the answer. The answer lies within the self, because the self is always happy whatever happens. You're always in bliss. So if at least partly we can learn to identify with this self, then we gain this ability to be happy whatever happens. In this way, the self can very much help us, and also in our meditation practice, this awareness of the self, this connecting to the self, is very essential. So then, the first thing to do about the self or with the self is contemplation. Contemplation takes two different forms. There is thinking about the self, and there is then the actual feeling of the self and the feeling of the truths related to the self. So this is what Ramana Maharishi, a very famous yogi of the last century, called Vichara, self-study, self-enquiry, where we are observing the world and ourselves, where we are studying the world and ourselves, and always trying to find out who is this I? Who is this I who is observing? Who is this I who is having these thoughts? Who is this I who is having these feelings and who is going through life? So this is involving a lot of reading and listening to these classes and a lot of, I would say, also thinking personally, really going through it and coming to some conclusions about it. And then once we have reached some understanding, when in our intellect there are not too many questions about it remaining, where intellectually we can really understand this definition of the self as pure formless being, then we can contemplate on these truths and use them as phrases which we are trying to sense, trying to feel, trying to see without thinking about them. So that is what contemplation truly means, is that we are sitting and one of these truths comes as a phrase to our mind, and then we leave it there without thinking about it. And maybe if necessary we repeat it once more, and then we again leave this truth be and feel it, sense it. And in that way we are imprinting these truths on our own mind, on our own intellect, so that more and more we are involving the self in whatever it is we are thinking about, so that more and more these truths are permeating our life, our way of thinking and our way of being. So it is important first to think about it. Some teachers may say that all this thinking is a lot of nonsense. That is really not true. Thinking is part of who you are, and if you don't pay proper attention to the thinking aspect, then the thoughts will always be bothering you and will never leave you alone. So first, yes, you think about it, you try to understand, and then once you have reached a certain understanding, you make that more strong inside of you through contemplation. And I have prepared a list of phrases related to the self that can be used in contemplation and which you can find in the home resources on the website. And I will read them now shortly. But the idea is not to contemplate on all of them because that's really too much, no? But maybe you pick a few, or maybe I would say maximum 5, and then these you use in a contemplation practice prior to your meditation. So let me just read them out for you, and I will leave a little bit of silence in between each of them so that you can feel them, and then I move to the next one. I am not this body. I am nobody's daughter or son. I am pure conscious energy. I am the observer of my surroundings, my thoughts, and my feelings. The past and the present only exist in the now of my being. I am endless, unborn, and never dying. This pure being that I am never changes. In essence, I have no desire. Actually, there is no problem. I exist without having to be something. I am everything, everywhere, always. I am the one they call God. We are all one being. I am here and now. What lives will never die. To be happy is a choice of what is. All paths lead to myself. I exist and we are one. So I could have written a few hundred more. But okay, with this you get a start, and some of them will require maybe some more thinking before you can truly say them inside of you and truly believe them and truly see them. So that's where this thinking comes in, where this study comes in. But so at some point you have to make up your mind about these things and accept these truths and imprint them on yourself so that you no longer doubt them and they are totally clear to you. That is what contemplation is all about. And so then we come to the use of the self as the object of our meditation. It is of course not easy because at this point the observer has to become the observed. No, it has to become its own object. So then we have to be fully focused on this pure being, which means that we have to stop everything else. So that is the pure jhana meditation. It just means to stop everything, to stop moving, to stop thinking, to stop trying to stop, to stop wanting, to stop everything, and just be entirely focused on the feeling of pure being, on the feeling of pure observation. But that means that we have to be entirely free of whatever else is being observed by the self. This is actually a very common misunderstanding which happens, that people believe that if they can just sit there and be silent and not think and just observe everything, that they are meditating on the self. But this is not correct. We cannot at that moment still have any observation of the universe around us going on, any observation of the breath going on, any observation of anything going on. We have to be observing only the observer. We have to only be in that pure being, which is really very hard, but it can be done, and it is definitely one of the ways in which we can reach deeper meditation. But for example, Patanjali is also very clear about that for the observer to find itself, for the observer to truly discover itself, for the observer to truly become itself, that it needs to be removed from the objects of observation. So as long as you are still hearing, as long as you are still seeing, as long as you are still experiencing something outside of you, this is not the true jhana meditation. So very hard it is, and actually a very advanced practice. To be able to just sit and not think, but still observe things around you, comes before the stage of concentration. It is part of what I have described as pratyahara, the withdrawal of the senses inside. And it is very important to learn that and to know how to do that. And if you know how to do that, then very good. You have already reached something. You are able to be silent, which means that you are able to concentrate. But that concentration still has to be there, and that concentration has to be totally inside. And in pure jhana yoga, that concentration only has to be on the observer itself. So, as I said, not easy, and to really move from there into any kind of deep meditation where we are no longer aware that we are meditating, we usually need some kind of object. We usually need some kind of vehicle, something which transports us from the experience outside to a pure experience of the self inside. So then in jhana yoga, we usually take some kind of object which is rather similar to the self, has properties that are more or less same as the properties of the self. So then we have a number of objects that we can use, which are relatively formless, which are relatively unchanging, and in that way can very much bring inside of us the feeling of the self and help us to focus ultimately only on the self and only on the observer of these things. Actually, by using such very specific objects, they kind of merge inside the self, and in that way we can still realize the objective of meditating on the self. So, one of the first and very often used is the sound of silence. I also have a full class on that subject on YouTube called The Sound of Silence. So if you like to know more, it is there. But briefly said, the sound of silence means that whatever sound is there happens against a background of silence, a kind of silent space in which this sound comes. So then when we try to hear this silence like we could hear it maybe in a very silent cave, then everybody will say, oh, you hear, oh, how silent it is. No? So that same thing we can have, whatever sound is there, by just focusing on it, by just putting our attention there, by listening to the sound of silence, we can hear it, which is a little bit a funny thing to say because, of course, nobody can hear silence, but that's just the point. If you are listening to it, you will hear it. If you are not listening, you will hear the sounds. So this way of sitting and just listening for something which actually has no existence, as I said, it brings us back to the observer, it brings us back to the listener, it brings us back to the self. So this is a very powerful way, which I also have used myself quite a lot in the past, and which still is such a easy way to immediately reconnect inside, reconnect to the pure being by just listening. Oh, there it is. This silence of pure beingness. No? The universe has the pure beingness as we have it. So when we listen to the silence of the universe, we listen actually to the pure beingness of the universe and of ourselves, of course, included. And so that way, the sound of silence can really bring us to a deep experience of the self. Another one, which is very often used, is time. Time, like the self, is unending. Time, like the self, has no particular form. We cannot say that, oh, time is very slow today, because time has actually no speed. Time is always in the now. There's always the now, like somehow repeating itself, but actually never changing. You cannot say that the now exists only like in every second, because in every millisecond in between every second also this now exists. So this now is something, yes, unchanging, always there, always moving on and still not moving at all. It's a very strange thing, but in that way not very different from the self. So to focus on the now, to just sit and feel time passing always in this now, to be in that way always moving, not every second, but every split second, every millisecond, just following time. At the same time, actually, we are following our being, because it is only in our being that time exists. It is in our experience, in our observation, that time exists. So by focusing on the eternal now, it brings us also, it catapults us back towards the feeling of observation, the feeling of the self. So it's a very, very beautiful way also. And this timelessness, this feeling of timelessness that we develop through it, is very good help also in life. So it can be used in life as well as in meditation, just like the sound of silence can be used in both. A third often used is the space. The space which is all around us but has no form and is never changing. Of course, in outer space things are changing all the time, but even if a Milky Way passes through space, and after it has passed, the space will be unchanged. It will still be just space. So in that way it is the same also as the self. And to be aware of space, however big or small you experience it, is also something which brings you back to the pure observer. So we can see space as endlessly expanded in the universe, beyond the universe, in a way, beyond the manifested universe, anyhow. Or we can see it as the space inside us, the pure space of our being, this emptiness which is full, as I explained before. And so that feeling of space or observation of space then becomes an observation of the self. So these are ways that are a little bit abstract maybe, but for some people they will work very well. And then I would say for some other people, and don't take this personal, they are maybe just a little less rational, then they need something a little more tangible, like maybe the breath. No? Also the breath is very much related to the self, very much related to the prana. And when we focus on breathing in jhana meditation, then this is not about feeling the ingoing breath and feeling the outgoing breath. No, it is the breathing itself. Whether ingoing or outgoing, it just becomes one. It is the breathing itself which is a kind of a being which never changes, which is formless, and which in that way also brings us to the experience of pure consciousness of the self. So then, you will feel more like that you are this energy of breath, this pranic energy of breath existing. And in this existent breathing, I would say, you are again brought back to the pure being of the self. So actually there are three kinds of entries to the self: Sat, Chit and Ananda. They are not just three properties, they are three entries. So Sat, the truth, is where we are understanding the self, either by thinking or by contemplating, by really feeling, by really having some kind of realization of who we truly are. So that is one entry. Then the second entry is through the Chit, which is the pure being. So that is where then maybe space or silence or breath can help us. And then the third entry is through Ananda or bliss. And that is not very different from the entry through Chit, the being. It also just means that we are focusing on our pure being, but at the same time we are having this kind of little smile of bliss along with it. And it is not to be underestimated what holding a little smile can do for you and what peace it can bring you. It's a little bit of a taboo, I would say, to just sit there and smile and just, be blissful. Most people who have not much idea about yoga or meditation, they may feel, oh, look at these people, they're just pretending to be happy. But the truth is, of course, that we are happy. In our most essential being, in the self, we are happy, we are blissful. So when we are sitting there and having a little smile and a little bliss, a little happiness inside, when we generate that insight, what we are doing is nothing more than letting what already is there exist. It is the unhappiness which is the untruth. So that definitely, for people who are a little more maybe emotional, is a way to reach the self. Just sit, be happy, smile, not a very big smile, just a little smile, and just try not to move, try not to lose the smile. Just focus on your pure happy being. This is the entry through Ananda. So these are typical kinds of jhana meditation, and when we are approaching it, let's say, more in a abstract, rational way, then the logical point to focus on inside the body is the third eye. I've explained in prior classes that this is very useful to have always one point in the body where we are focusing, so that our attention does not wander around the body. And for those who are more approaching it from the feeling of bliss, from Ananda, from the little smile, there the heart center will work best. Then you can feel yourself being there with a smile, here in the heart. So these are very, very useful things, and just try them out. And if thoughts are still coming too much, okay, then probably you need something more. But give it a try and give it enough time. It all needs some, exercise, some getting used to, and some skill development, let's say, also there. But you also have to be accepting if thoughts are coming too much, if the focus on something abstract like silence or space is just not enough, then you need some more to hang on to. Then you need an object which is a little bit more solid. So then if concentration still is a little hard, just accept it and take something which is a little more tangible, which has a little bit more form. And there are quite a few options that are related to the self, related to self-enquiry. So if you are quite enthusiastic about the whole thing, then sure, there you can find some things. And one of the best known, of course, is quite simply meditation on Om. So Om is the universal sound, the sound of being, the sound of existence, the sound of the Big Bang, you can say, but which is still vibrating through the universe, the sound of being in each and every person, in each and everything. So that definitely is also something which can be done. And so we can chant Om and slowly, slowly chant it maybe a little bit less loud and then go inside and continue chanting or reciting Om inside. And actually when we are doing it inside, then the is not so much needed. Then we can just meditate on Om, like this in the mind, keeping it there and sticking to it. Not easy, no, because it's a very simple thing to hold on to, but still it can work. And maybe a little remark also on Om is important, that in the West we very often say Om, but is actually the wrong pronunciation of Om. Om should be said with a mouth in which there is no tension. So if we say O, there is a tension in the lips. Like if we say Ah, then also there is a tension in the lips. So Om is really correctly written with AU or now I'm just opening my mouth without any tension. Then of course when we do it out loud we have to sometimes close the mouth and take a breath, so then naturally comes the but the main sound is Om. So anyway, very nice to work with, very universal of course also. And another one then, which we have already discussed in previous sessions, especially when we talked about breath, is So Hum. So Hum, which means that I am. And then we have the possibility also to synchronize with the breath, so that mentally we say So on the inhale and Hum on the exhale. So then by being always aware also of the meaning of it, that I am, and that is of course the self, that self I am, that self I am, that self I am, that self I am. So Hum no, is a little bit more than Om, at least it has two parts. No? So with that we can focus maybe a little more easy, and then certainly by synchronizing with the breathing, the focus can become really strong. And that is, as I say, maybe too often in this series, always what matters. If you can concentrate without too much thinking, then you are on the right track. Then everything else will happen automatically. And so there is So Hum. There is also Hum Sa, which means the same thing. I am that. So is also possible. And then if you feel these things are still too complicated, too simple actually to focus on, not giving you enough to hold on to, then there is also a lot more. And I've selected 3, you could say, mantras or shlokas, verses, which are related to the subject of the self, and which can be used as mantras are used in mantra meditation, repeated inside, maybe first outside, then inside, and in that way become really good, solid objects of meditation. And the first one is Om Purnamada. So I'm just going to chant it first, and then I'll explain what it means. But anyhow, you have the texts on the website also. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudasyati Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamiva Vasisyati Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So, very beautiful verse. Om Purnamada Purnamidam. This is perfect, that is perfect. So this is to say that whatever you can observe is perfect, is the self, is pure, is untouched, unborn, all these things. This is perfect, that is perfect. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudasyate. The perfect originates from the perfect. So in that way the self does not have any mother or father. It is unborn, it is existing only by itself. It originates with itself. Purnasya Purnamadaya. There I'm putting a little bit of dramatic sound, because now I'm saying if you take the perfect out of the perfect, what's going to happen? Purnamiva Vasishyate. Only the perfect remains. So you cannot take the perfect out of the perfect. The perfect cannot be changed. The perfect is never affected by anything. So, Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So, peace, peace, peace. Peace is always there because the self is always there in each and everything. Unborn, unchanged, always there. So beautiful, beautiful, very old this mantra or shloka is, and very nice to meditate upon. And from a tantric point of view, this Om Purnamada Pu 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 Pu, this also has a very good effect on your energy body. So then a second one, which is also very old and quite well known, is Asatoma. Asatoma Satkamaya Tamasuma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So then Asatoma Sadgamaya, it means lead me from untruth to truth. Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya, lead me from the darkness to the light. Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya, lead me from death to the nectar of immortality. No? The self being unborn and never dying, so truly immortal. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Peace Peace Peace. Also very, very, very nice to work with. So when in the last one is a little longer, I learned it from Harish Johari, is also very beautiful, and it approaches the self more in the tantric way as pure energy, which is of course also pure consciousness, but as pure energy in the sense of being the mother, being the source of everything, and in that way also being something which is very comforting. And if we can focus on that, then we don't really need anything else. Vina dhyanam japyam bina puja divipri bina balim bina vyasam bodhishuddhya dibir bina. Bina klesa dibir devi deha dukkaha dibir bina sitrashu bhavit smate smate saravut mamata om. So very nice song. Adi Johari used to sing it very often also in the morning. Brings memories. So Bina Dhyanam Japyam Bina means without meditation or mantra repetition. Bina Puja Dibipri, and also without any rituals. Bina Balim Bina Vyasam, without sacrifices or disciplines. Bud Shuddhya Dibir Bina, without purifying the elements, meaning, we don't really have to take special care of the body, no Ayurveda. Bina klesha dibir devi, without pushing away unhappy feelings. Deha dukkha dibir bina, without softening our pain. Siddhara shu bhavet smat smat saravot mamata. Only through the power of loving awareness of the mother we will be helped. So, I am not saying that you don't need to meditate, otherwise why would I be giving this whole series? Huh? And I am not saying you don't need any ritual, I am not saying you don't need to take care of your body, I am not saying anything like that. Only this song points out that all these things should come second. We should not become too much dependent on it. If our body is not okay, we still can be okay. If our ritual is not possible, we can still be okay. If we have no time to meditate, we can still be okay by always keeping this feeling of the self, by always feeling supported by the self, which is our mother, which is our father, which way you want, I don't care, but to always have this peace inside of the self. That is the central message of this shloka. So, anyhow, if you like to work with all this, then I have put the text online, but I've also put audio recordings online. So if you like to learn these songs and integrate them in your meditation practice or somehow or other in your life, I think it is very good. So as I said in the beginning, the self is essential in any kind of meditation. Whether we use the self as the object of our meditation or not, always whatever object is there, the observer is there, the witness is there, and to be aware of it is essential to be able to concentrate on anything. To be aware of the silent self keeps us silent, stops us from needing to think, from wanting to think, from having something to think about. And so in this silence, we can focus on a mantra or on any other object of meditation. So in that way, the self-service, 24 hours a day in life, to be more calm, to live in detached attachment, to be happy whatever happens. The self is quite essential. And in meditation practice, it is an object of contemplation. It is helping us to withdraw inside and truly be silent when we want to concentrate. It can be also, but as I explained, it is not so easy, be the object of our meditation, or we can take some objects that relate to it to focus on, which bring us back to the feeling of pure beingness. And then one thing which we definitely should always remember is that after our meditation is finished, after whatever we have done in terms of mantra or yantra or something else, we should always use the energy generated. We should always use the peace generated to, at the end of our meditation, just sit and be and try not to do anything and try to do the most essential meditation on the self, which means to stop doing anything and just be. And the importance of that is not just because this is actually the best chance that we have of connecting to the self, but also because it then allows us to connect and take the self with us as we again step into life and live life in a different way, always trying to keep this feeling of the self. So the self is the jewel that we can discover or develop in our meditation. So then this jewel, we try to keep it with us and live from the heart and live from pure being as much as we can. And whenever we feel we lose it, then maybe it is time to again focus on it, whether sitting on our mat in meditation or just on the bus or anywhere where you are, whatever is happening, somehow or other, find a way to easily reconnect to that pure beingness, and then again from there move forward. So, and last but not least, some information also about the daily exercises for this week, which are quite different from last week. I mean, the whole beginning, preparation, intention, relaxation, it's still the same. I mean, I've kept it the same on the page, but feel free to still, if you like, experiment, try out this and that. We've seen so many ways to relax the body, to relax the mind, to relax the breathing, to relax the senses. So whichever there you have found suits you, use it, and maybe also still try out a few things. But then when we come to the actual part of entering into concentration, leading to meditation, I would like to suggest everybody now to focus on the jhana meditation only, on meditation of the self only. Next week, we'll have another subject, and again, you can change. But so, in the past weeks, you've already a little bit made this choice for jhana, for bhakti, or for maybe a more karma yogic kind of approach. But this time, forget about it. Just do this, so at least you have 1 week of experience with this, and discover whatever there is for you there to discover, and then be able to integrate that further into your practice. So we start with a few contemplations, 1, 2, 5 of these phrases, which I've also put there in the PDF file. Repeat each of these phrases at least 5 times. And of that, I would say do 4 times inside, and the last time do it outside. This also has a particular power, let's say, and always leave some silence in between each of these phrases so that you can just feel these truths and imprint them on your own being. And then second, that first part takes maybe about 5 minutes. Then second, we synchronize, as explained before, some breathing with Soham inside, remaining aware also of this Soham, meaning that I am. Then I like you to choose, because you can make too much of a masala. I like you to choose between focusing on the eternal passing of time in the now, or on the silence behind all sounds, or on the empty space in the universe which never changes and in which everything happens. So you choose one of them, and for 5 minutes just try to focus there, just try to hear the sound of silence, just try to feel the existence as empty space, or just try to feel yourself existing in this eternal now. About 5 minutes is not a very long time, but for some it will still be quite something. And then last but not least, focus your attention in the third eye center. Observe this point. Bring everything of the universe into this point. Bring everything in your observation into this point. And then remain aware of this point while also being aware of the observer of this point. So then you get that point in the third eye and you get the observer, and maybe slowly you can just be in the observer as it goes, for you. But the moment you feel thoughts again coming, then again, of course, you focus on this point. So point plus observer, then maybe withdraw to the observer if possible and just stay there. And then, as for every meditation until now, at the end of the session, just don't do anything at all. Just be the self that you are, and enjoy it and take it with you. So that's it for this session. Maybe I repeat. I hope to see all of you tomorrow in the Facebook Messenger room. There is no Facebook account needed for this actually. These sessions are also not recorded. So don't be shy. Just come. I would love to see you all. And I think it will be very nice. Satsang, togetherness in truth. So looking forward to seeing you there. And have a nice day. Ram Ram.